Now, to look at the broader impact, we can speak to Maurizio Zanardi. He's a professor of economics at the University of Sussex's Business School and joins us from Brighton in the UK. Prof, good to speak to you. How difficult is it going to be to agree on something like these tariffs when you have the different EU countries also concerned about their very specific economic industries that are affected here?
Well, it is a very difficult situation for the 27 countries to come together and behave just like one group. And to some degree, I believe that the United States, President Trump is exploiting the strategy of dividing and conquering because there are many different positions in the EU reflecting different industrial structure, different political positions of the governments that are in power. And that doesn't allow to consolidate a unified position because as a matter of fact, the EU is large economically, is on par, possibly slightly larger than the American market. So it could put down its feet and make its economic weight relevant. But then you need really to behave just like one actor. And then on the other end, you don't know who you're negotiating exactly on the other side. Is President Trump directly? Are the various people involved in the negotiations? But then the last word seems to be the one of the president. So according to what also your reporter was saying, the deal was supposedly on the desk. And then what happened? Was it not signed or was not on the desk in the first place?
If this 30% tariff does go ahead on the 1st of August, how are consumers in the European Union going to feel it?
Everyone is going to feel it, in the sense that 30% is a very large number when we consider that pre-Trump administration, the average import tariff in the United States was something like 2.5%, apart from China. So this 30% tariff means that export from the EU to the US will decrease dramatically, which means that consumers in the US will pay more, but at the same time, consumers in the European Union will face the possibility of unemployment, restructuring of their jobs, and at the same time, the possibility that other flows of trade that cannot reach the U.S. because the U.S. is raising tariff barriers on Mexico, on China, on Canada, on any countries in the world, these exporters may try to deploy their means to sell to the EU. So the EU may also experience an increase in imports, which on the one hand will decrease prices, but will have a dramatic effect on firms in the EU competing with these foreign producers.
And Maurizio, just finally, what kind of retaliatory measures could the EU put in place if this all does go ahead?
Well, the EU has various measures they can use. As a matter of fact, less than 2 years ago, they introduced an anti-coercion mechanism, which allows the EU to display all sorts of measures when they feel threatened by another country in terms of trade or investment provisions. This is a quintessential example. Of course, displaying such a bazooka, as someone calls it, a weapon, may lead to further retaliation from the Trump administration. Let's not forget that in his letters, Trump says that any retaliation will be met on a one-to-one in further escalating the tariffs that the US is imposing. So here we have really, it's a very difficult situation, standing for the principles, standing for what is right, and also standing in order to stand up to someone may call a bully that is trying to push trading partners all over the world to accept his terms. So abilities to retaliate, there are. The question is, what is the economic and, more importantly, possibly, the political cost of that retaliation?
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Professor Zanardi there. Appreciate it.